never give up. I never give up. I never give up. Turn around.
Hi guys, welcome back to my Steps to Sobriety, my show on YouTube and as a podcast with me, your host Stefan Neff. I have got the honor and privilege of meeting Kattie Lail today. And I was looking forward to this interview for quite some time because she is a fellow traveler who actually went through her own personal hell and is now, like me, out there to make this world a bit of a better place, one interview at a time. And I was so looking forward to her that we started talking and had the most fantastic discussion already. We were half through the interview and I realized, that she not started the record button. So here we are, both already very relaxed because we have been here before. It's a bit of a déjà vu. But it just shows here we are, full of passion for life, having a good time, when yet we had been in our hell with demons doing interesting things within our heads. So if this is not proof that the past does not equal the future, then I don't want to know. So, Kattie, welcome to my show.
Thanks again for having me. I am so grateful to be here. Snafus and all.
Oh, no, it's just crazy. And it's crazy because we immediately had this bond and we immediately wanted to chat. And it was so beautiful. And it is beautiful because we both have been in the darkness. And nowadays we therefore appreciate the light such more than other people who have not had this intense up and down, or maybe many people had their down, but they have not yet experienced that up of transformation and recovery. So that's a beautiful and today we are both here to actually share our stories and allow others just maybe to get that glimmer of hope to say, hey, no, okay, if these two numbnuts have got it sorted, then maybe there's still a chance for me as well. So Kattie,
No, I always think like if there was people that could have seen me like in my worst and then seen me now, there is definitely hope.
Exactly. Do you actually have pictures of your worst?
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure. And the funny thing is I thought I looked really good then, but looking back, it's like, oh.
Exactly. Oh, it's interesting. I've only got one picture where really there's proof of me being absolutely blotto. Otherwise, I was blessed to do all my very strange things and naughty things at a time when cell phones didn't have any camera ability, or where at least I was surrounded by people who had the dignity to not film and rather party themselves. So different. I was blessed with that. But Kattie, I mean, I really started getting into my alcohol around about 18, 19, 20. You were a much earlier starter, weren't you? You were, a fast going for it. Tell us a bit how your story started.
Yeah. So for me, like getting into meth addiction, so mine was a meth addiction, it was just a really natural transition for me. I grew up and both of my parents struggled with meth use. And so it was kind of just around me. It was just kind of a part of my life. I started experimenting with like drinking and marijuana, things like that when I was, 12, 13. But I was the oldest of my siblings by quite a bit. So I am 8 years older than my twin sisters and 6 years older than my younger brother. And so I fell into this like caretaking role. And so, that's really difficult. Like when you're in middle school and early high school and you don't have any resources, you have to kind of like try to just keep everything together and be responsible for these young people. So in my mind, I developed this solution. And if I could just, party with my mom, maybe she wouldn't leave so much. And so, it kind of we started drinking together a little bit and we were, drinking with her and her boyfriend and my boyfriend. And it was just kind of like this little thing. And she went to get high and I asked if I could get high also. And, there was like a small bit of hesitation, but she ended up letting me. And And then from there, I just really hit the ground running. After that, there was no looking back for me.
What did the meth do to you? What was the first feeling? Can you remember it the first time you used meth?
Yes, I will definitely never forget the first time that I used. And it's funny because I had really like built it up in my head. Like there was a part of me that knew that I was like on this road to doing meth, and like just the way that I seen everybody act, like I just thought it was going to make everything perfect. And it definitely didn't. It had its downsides, but the thing that I remember the most is after I got high, like I just didn't care anymore. Like I didn't care about the consequences of like whatever was going to happen. I didn't care about any of the responsibilities. I didn't care about, everything that had gone wrong for the past 2 years. I was just there. I was just there and I was just having fun and everything was just okay. I didn't have any emotions.
Interesting. So neither high nor low, but just no emotions?
Like no emotions. I mean, I would say like definitely like you're at a more engaged state, like it's an upper. So you definitely like feel that, but like emotion wise, like I wasn't sad. I wasn't happy. Like I was just doing what I was doing.
Interesting. How long did that hit last for you?
So,
I mean, hours wise, how actually, what's the duration of this awareness state?
So it's hard to tell because I didn't stop there.
Right.
We drove about 3 hours to a casino, and my mom stuck me into the casino and I gambled. But like, I think every 20 minutes we were all sneaking to the bathroom and getting high. So it was like a continuous thing. And so for me, it was about 2 days. And then, you're driving home and you're like, oh my gosh, school and all these obligations and all these things and everything kind of like comes crashing down on you. And so but I would say, like if you like meth isn't one of those things that you do and it's like gone a couple hours later, like that intense high is maybe an hour or two, but then I feel like it trickles on for days.
Interesting. Oh, okay. And I mean, I love to have an absolute clarity in my mind. Nowadays, I value that, but I get a true clarity from the way I live nowadays. But I can see how that if you're constantly in a grind and suddenly you get this drug that makes you see things clear without the negative emotions, without the shame, the guilt, the sadness, the trauma, whatever trauma there is, you don't give a damn anymore. What a relief that is. Just to not feel the pain. I can see that. It's interesting. I put meth. I've never had it, luckily, and I put it sort of in the same group as ecstasy. Ecstasy is sort of as the make the world everyone is your best friend, and I thought you would get that emotional high there as well. But it's interesting to hear your description, which is clearly different from my prejudice, so to speak. Was meth the only thing? And why meth? Why not? How much was meth on the street at that time? What about cocaine? What about other drugs? Was meth cheap?
Definitely not cheap. But like thinking back, the funny thing is I couldn't even tell you like what I was paying for the drug at the time. It didn't even seem like a relevant factor.
Okay.
But for me, like I think that the biggest factor was that's what was being used by my social group, by the people around me.
Yeah.
So it was like, that was also another piece of it. It was like the first time in my life that I like felt connected, and I, and so for a lot of it was just that connection and the people, the accessibility of it.
Sure. And that makes sense within your family and within your friend group, so to speak. And I used the word friend as the looseliest term here as possible. But then there was this other Katie who went to school. How were you in school? How did things work out there? Because often enough, children from dysfunctional families, they actually love school and spend every second in school and every after-school activity because it takes them out of the chaos of their home.
When I started using it at such a young age, things really fell apart for me at school. Prior to that, I really loved school. It was like a place where you go and you somebody's telling you that you're doing a good job. And that was worth it for me, just throwing yourself into that. But at this time, it quickly turned into a truancy situation and not going to school, because it really wasn't going to school wasn't conducive with me on my continual journey to stay high at this time,
So did no one use at school? So school was more or less a good school, quotation mark?
Yeah, definitely. And even at the age that I started using, most of the people that I were using with were, I was 15, 16, and during this age period,
yeah.
Most of the people that I was using with were, in their 20s or friends of my mom's
right.
And so, it wasn't until probably closer to graduation time that there was more people my age who were using substances. So.
Okay. Wow. So many questions, because for me, alcohol was equally a liberating thing. It made me come out of my shell. I was probably very shy, and so alcohol allowed me to be that other persona. Alcohol had also an impact on me, on my sexuality, because with being more relaxed, therefore I had certainly a better performance, so to speak, in bed, and to a degree that I could actually control an erection at the right level of alcohol. I could switch it on and off as to my will, and that was a powerful, beautiful thing. Does meth do anything to sexuality? Does it turn it off? Does it turn it on? Does it do anything?
Yeah, no, it definitely does. And it almost becomes like a big tangled web, because meth definitely heightens that sexual drive. And the experience is so much more intense. And especially when you're shooting up, there's something about just the whole shooting up experience is almost like a sexual experience in itself. And so it's really hard to honestly disentangle the two. But it's to the point where it's almost it kind of taints sex in a way, it takes away the beauty and the passion of it, and almost becomes this dirty, impulsive thing that happens instead.
That's interesting how you, however, already put an emotion onto it, whilst initially it was that kind of wow. Very quickly, though, it changes, isn't it? And into it, there are more layers to that where suddenly you're the devil on the shoulder and the angel on the shoulder are having an interesting discussion about the same topic there. Intriguing. Yeah, and it's exactly the same thing. And of course but if you actually just step a bit back here from what we are talking and look at it objectively, the power, the release that we get from an orgasm, from sex, is beautiful. And if you're now using that drug, and the drug sort of comes at the same primal level of an orgasm or of that release, you can see what a power very quickly such a drug can take over you, because it comes at two levels way down from, okay, hey, that feels good, to I need to have it on a reptilian brain level, isn't it?
Yes. And it just and the thing is not that the acts of sex were bad in any way, but it was it was leading me to make choices that I don't think that I would have made without the substance. And then you're just stuck sorting through all of that too. Oh, what does this mean about me now? What does this make me and just all of that on top of, the shame of just addiction in itself.
Absolutely. And let's not be silly here. It's so easy to look down onto addicts and look what they have done here, and this is nearly prostitution or so. Sorry, how many people do drink out there? And we're making jokes about it, about the beer goggles, that any woman looks good after six pints of beer, and we laugh about it, ha ha ha. And we certainly have probably woken up in places where we thought, what the hell, and who are you? So it is actually so common out there, having been there, knowing too many people who have been there. Okay. So no. We all do. We all do things that we very much regret later. And I get that as part and parcel of our journey. There is, and it's interesting that you mentioned the shame and the guilt. Was there, when you took the meth, did you feel guilty about it? Did you know that it was wrong? Was there a part of you that said, I really don't want to do that, but I need to, and now that I've taken it, I feel guilty?
That developed later on, for sure. I don't think that was there like instinctually right away, because like I didn't have those like social consequences. Like it was pretty accepted in the group that I was in, with my parents using and everything. So I didn't experience that then, but it was after I realized like the negative effect that it was having on my life, and that this wasn't the life that I wanted to live. And then, after making these attempts at abstinence, and when I would go back, that's when that like guilt over the substance began to kick in for me.
Exactly. And that's, I mean, if you look at how a doctor diagnoses alcoholism, it's really 4 questions, the cage questions, we call them. C for, have you ever thought you need to cut down on your drinking or using? Have you felt angry when others are commenting about you using? Do you feel guilty about using? And then for alcohol, it's the eye opener. Do you need any alcohol in the morning to steady your nerves or calm down the hangover? These are the cage questions for alcohol. But I mean, certainly the first 3 are applying to any kind of addiction that is out there. And as you quite rightly say, down the line, I was 4 out of 4. But initially, you take it as a young person. It's part of your life. You're having a good time. And you had good times. I know later down the line, it was not all misery. I mean, you tell us a bit about how you actually got into becoming a drug dealer.
It's, the funny thing is, it's still even crazy for me to think about me being a drug dealer, but it's like you separate yourself from this lifestyle. But so I had been in this super unhealthy relationship for 9 years, and I was just really dependent on that relationship. And I left this relationship. I was grieving pretty hard. We had tried to have kids. I struggled with infertility. I just really didn't have any social support. Like I'd never developed those things for myself. And so after a few-year period of abstinence from meth, I went back to using. And I was, at the time I was 29, and I was just too old. I didn't want to do like the couch surfing thing anymore. Like I didn't want to have to depend on others. I didn't want to put myself in that vulnerable situation. And so, I took out the rest of my money in my bank account, which wasn't very much, like $300. And I bought, a quarter ounce, and I quickly turned that into a half ounce, and then an ounce. And the next thing you know, I bought a quarter pound. And then it was just like, and then I was just going, like, I just kept going, and I just kept selling drugs. And so within a month, I had a condo that I was living in. I had bought a new car. I was going to the casino all the time. And not only like the things that you're getting, like I was constantly shopping and like doing all these things, but like the power that comes along with it. I was dating a guy at the time, and I just remember him calling it, big fish, little pond. Like you should have higher aspirations. But in my mind, I'm like, I feel great. It added like a whole different element to things. And it was, coming from this really like vulnerable background and this really dependent relationship. It was the first time in my life that I felt confident and in control. And that was addictive in itself for me.
I can see that. But now, if you're actually describing your activities at that time, there was gambling, there was shopaholic, there was,
Mhm.
you did all the holics. You really got them down. You said, why did you miss out on the alcohol? Come on. Was it too below you or what?
Oh, I had my times for sure.
Okay. So you were not discriminative. Yeah, not discriminating.
Definitely not.
A converser of holics.
Yes.
Oh, shit.
Gotta try them all out, you know.
That's right. That's right.
See where you fit in.
But of course, it is all of them give you a certain temporary relief or release of tension, a temporary tiny high, but that high is never that original high. That high is never the first time that you actually really feel whatever feel good there is left in you. So, I mean, the most truck kingpins, unless you're in Mexico and become a big cartel, you sort of end up on the radar of the feds, certainly in the United States. Could that have been maybe the case with you too?
Yes. It happened very quickly. From the time that I relapsed until the time that the feds kicked in my door, it had been a 6-month period. So I didn't make it very far. I don't know if that means I was really good or really bad at selling drugs. It means one of the two. But either way, I'll never forget that day and going to jail. And when I was arrested, I just thought that meant that I was just going to be in prison for the next 10 years, no questions asked. And I ended up getting out on pretrial release. They let me be out for that year while I was going through that sentencing process. But from the minute that they let me out, like I was like, I have to be done. Like I cannot just keep doing this. Like I need to just actually figure out what it is that I need to do different, and I need to do it. I need to heal. I need to grow, because this is not how I want to live my life.
Did you get any help there? I mean, you had surrounded yourself with people who were partying. You surrounded yourself. You chose people that make you think that actually, hey, yeah, that lifestyle that I'm living, that is normal. That's what we all do. That's why we have got our drinking buddies, etc. The moment you change yourself, 90% of those so-called friends don't want to know you, because you're no longer the fun guy or fun girl, or the girl that helps others sustain their addiction. That is quite an empty space, an empty point in your life. Who did you seek help from? What was available to you?
Yeah. So, I mean, I wish I would have known all of the resources available then that I do now. But at the time, like, I definitely need to give my grandma credit, because like throughout everything, like she's always been my champion. She's always been the one that's been there, that's wanted the best for me. And like, I can't tell you how many times, like, I went through my life thinking I didn't have any support, but she was always there. Like, I just didn't know how to like allow myself to access that. So she let me come and stay with her. And, that was just a huge, huge, amazing blessing. So I had a safe place to go, which is more than a lot of people can say. And I remember the feeling, like at this point, my addiction had become so intense. And like, there was so many of my aholic things that you were talking about, that like, when I wasn't actively filling that like emptiness inside me, I was in so much pain. Just, I had no idea how to even function. And I just remember I was like shaking, and I was just like near tears all the time. I was full of anxiety. And I said, like, I just told myself, I just need help. Like, I don't even know where or what that means. And I just like scrolled through the internet browser and found the first like support group that I could find. And it was in a church basement. It wasn't, AA, NA, anything. It was just like a local whatever. And I just went there, and I just remember saying like, I don't know what I need, but I need help. And I just started bawling, and just, these people that I didn't know were so far removed from my life, they all just like rallied behind me and just loved me. And for me, I was like, okay, like I can do this because there are other people who have done this, and there are people here to walk this journey with me. So, I did some NA meetings. I did some things like that. I also got really involved in like meditation and, just some of that mindfulness stuff. I got into doing some more like physical things with my body, doing yoga. I started running. But like the biggest piece for me was developing that social group of people who I looked at their life and I said, this is what I want for my life. And those were the people that I started to choose to be around. And they gave me suggestions and they helped me. And for the first time in my life, I listened. And it changed everything for me.
Beautiful. I had exactly the same experience in rehab. And once sort of the fog of the first week or two has sort of lifted and you look around, you suddenly realize, had to realize that every single one of the people around me who were helping me were ex-addicts. All of them were ex-alcoholics, ex-druggies, etc. And they all had now their shit together, from the yoga instructor to the counselors to whatever. And I thought, and the nurses were there. All of them were addicts in a previous life. Therefore, you can't bullshit a bullshitter. And I loved that when I realized that I was surrounded by success stories. And that gave me hope. I really hope. And for me, there was the added thing of being a doctor. I know it better. I know me. I'm a doctor. That bullshit in your mind. And actually, the boss of the rehab took me one Saturday out and said, hey, I want you to meet someone. And we walked into a cafe and there sat a colleague of mine who I knew professionally and who I had actually in high esteem. And he's the boss of the rehab said, yeah, come on, you two have a chat and I'll pick you up in an hour. And it turns out that he had been shooting up in the past, that he had a problem with that. But I knew him now that he was clean and higher, as I said, higher esteem. And for me to see, wow, okay, someone that I look up to has been in trouble. And now got his shit together. That was so beautiful and so powerful and gave me that hope that I needed. And for you, that was that church group. But more importantly, I would like to speak out and give a big thank you to your grandmother. Is she still around?
She is, yes.
Oh, Granny, however you like to be called, you're my hero because you truly embody the hate the addiction, love the addict. And that is so, so, so beautiful. That is sometimes the only thing that we can do is to show love, even if we hate what a certain person in our life, the chaos that they are causing. But still love that person and do not forget to give them a hug. It's just a big hug can sometimes can be the difference between life and death. It's as simple as that. I'm so pleased for you that you had that anchor in that very bizarre storm that you found yourself in called life.
She's definitely my rock, still to this day.
Beautiful. Does she listen to shows like that? Does she listen to your interviews?
She does not, but maybe this one I might recommend her to, I do want her to know like how important she was.
Well, exactly right. So because sometimes we forget to tell those people who really mean so much to us. And I just thought, it might be a nice thing to do. No, that's so beautiful. So the church group helped you, and initially you were still on pre-trial. When the trial came along, did you have an all-paid vacation?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, I did. So it was such an interesting experience, and when I say interesting, I mean really shitty experience. But it was like great in some ways because I had this year. And in this year, I was so dedicated to like growth and growing and becoming this amazing person. And I was just like mentally preparing myself for going in. So you're doing all this knowing that you are on your way to prison. And so in that year, I had met a guy And we started dating, and we ended up getting married about a week before I had my sentencing.
Oh, wow.
And so, and then I had a job that I really liked. I'd started going to grad school. Like, I just had really done all these amazing things. And so to have to walk away from all of that and go to prison was really devastating. And I remember thinking, like, it's going to be okay. It's going to go by fast. I'm going to learn a lot here. I'm going to grow here as well. And that lasted about until they dropped me off in the dorm that I was staying in, and then I lost it. Like, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is where I'm going to be for the next 3 years. And so, like, that was when the panic set in for me. Like, just even like, it just became so real. And so, yeah, I ended up doing 3 years. And I would say for me, every day of that 3 years was painful. I had a lot of people tell me that I was suffering unnecessarily, but I didn't know how to transcend that at the time. So I suffered through it.
What did they mean with you suffered unnecessarily?
I think that there are a lot of people that maybe are able to accept kind of the situation and like be able to detach and just like be where they're at. And like, I was never able to do that because like, I felt like I had this beautiful life waiting for me outside. I didn't come in the midst of hell. Like, I came in after I'd healed. And so it was like such a different experience, because I think I would have had an easier time if I would have went in like right after everything happened, because and I think I would have also fit in a lot better too, but I definitely didn't by the time that I got there.
Oh, bloody hell. Were there support services within the hospital, I was about to say, within the prison service?
Some. It's definitely, the need is greater than the actual services provided. And a lot of them are tailored to like meet people as they're getting ready to like head out the door. So like when you're first there and like you're in that like extreme like suffering stage, you're kind of just like thrown into the wolves. Luckily, there was a really great group of women there who were also kind of on that same like self-improvement journey that I was, and they had developed their own support group within the prison.
Brilliant.
And so they must have just known that I needed them, because on my first day there, I was walking down there like, you're new. And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, okay, we have this support group. Maybe you should try it out. And I did. And like, those were the people that helped me get through this time,
Beautiful.
And so it was just like, it was just a meant to be type of situation. So.
Oh, beautiful. How long were these women in? I can imagine that this is quite a transitional kind of thing, because some of them would have been leaving, finally getting ready for discharge. But how did you guys sustain yourself, and how did that work?
So I would say that the support group lasted about a year and a half into my sentence, and then it kind of started to fade away, because, whether it was somebody getting transferred to another prison, people getting out, most of these people had shorter sentences. So a lot of them were out before I was.
I see.
But, we had some people come in, so I still developed some relationships. But so I think almost all of them were out by the time that I was. But I mean, last October, we all went to Chicago together and kind of like met up in the central location. We had a really great time.
Excellent.
I think they're going on a cruise this coming October. I will not be going. I'll be 7 months pregnant. So I'm like, I'm going to sit this one out, guys. I think I'll just stay home.
Excellent.
But, so they, like, everybody stayed in touch, and it's just been a really cool thing.
Oh, how cool is that? That is beautiful. Yeah. So that was a life straw, or a big life ring that was thrown to you by the universe. Oh, how beautiful is that? Okay. So when you got out, did you hit the ground running? And were you so full of energy that you wanted to? Or was it then such a culture shock everything is now new again, and you can't just pick up? where you left.
It was like okay, I'll start with one thing. So I really thought that when I got out, like it was going to make everything okay. Like I was like, this is going to solve all my problems. But it was really difficult readjusting to life. Like even like, I started off with a part-time job and it seemed overwhelming because you go from having like nothing on your schedule to like, oh my gosh, I got to do all these things. And it's like, how do people have a full-time job? And then on top of that, I'd gotten married prior to going to prison. But this was my first time living with my husband. And so now we've been married for 3 years and now we actually have to live together. And so that comes with its own set of things, because usually it's like a transition, like maybe they start staying over sometimes or you stay over sometimes. And it's like kind of like this progressive thing, but like, nope, we're living together and we're married. Here we are. So
excellent.
That came with its own set of challenges. And then, I didn't think that I could have kids. I'd spent about, 5 years at this point thinking that I wasn't able to have children. And 3 months after I got out, of course, I'm pregnant. So, we moved in together, bought a house, got pregnant and got a dog, like all within like a 3-month period. So it was like just this really super overwhelming, surreal experience. And it took me about a year to even feel like my feet were remotely underneath me. It was like thinking back, it's like, how did I even make it through all of that?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. These are all the life stressors that you could possibly think about. You just put them in there. The only thing you didn't do is emigrate into a new country. Apart from that, you ticked it all off. Fantastic. Well, and kudos to you, because at any one time during that time, you could have been tempted to go back. Did you have any relapses? Alcohol, gambling, any of them?
No, so we did go gambling for my husband and I. Our birthday is a day apart, and so we'd gone gambling one time for our birthdays at kind of the big like casino resort thing. We did like a massage, like gambling, whatever, and like it wasn't like a gambling extravaganza, but like even just like throwing that $20 in the machine, like that caused me a physical reaction that I did not feel good about. Like that is not something that I want to be a part of my life anymore.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. That's interesting. So, and I love that voice that is becoming stronger in recovery when actually you find yourself no longer driven by impulses and do it and then regret and have shame and guilt, but you actually realize you've got a choice. And you either choose recovery or you choose relapse. Either you're working either way, it's your choice. And that's beautiful. Well, that's the mindfulness that you want rather than the meth mindfulness that you had previously had. But having said that, here you were suddenly thrown into the deep end. You get tired because there's suddenly so much going on in your life. For me, fatigue is a big driver to drink, because I get a second wind after a few glasses of wine. Bing, okay, it's 2:00 in the morning. Let's clean up the garage, shall we? It's that kind of stuff which I actually like. So for me, how do you deal with fatigue? How do you deal when you're really down? And do you nowadays have the power or the insight to say, okay, actually, my body is tired. Enough is enough.
So for me, I feel like, so I'm a grad student and I work full time and I have a toddler and I'm pregnant and I have 2 Great Danes. So maybe I'm still an alcoholic of something here. There might be something, but for me, like, I feel like I manage all these things because my life is built around self-care. And so
Beautiful.
it's not even like letting myself get to the point where like I'm worn down. It's like, let's look at my time management on a day-to-day basis. Like if I start to feel like that anxious feeling, like, what do I need to change? What do I need to evaluate? It's like a constant thing for me, And so like routines are of the utmost importance. Like, people are always amazed because I have a 1.5-year-old that just goes to bed, but like also he's just done the same thing every night at the same time for, since he was born. And it's the same for me, like I just do the same things at the same time. And like along with that, like there's time built in for me to take a nap on the weekends. And there's time built in for me to, stop at a park on the way to work and meditate in my car before I get here. And there's time for me to, spend 20 minutes in the evening talking with my husband. And so it's just built into my life. So I look at it as more of like a preventative view. And if I start feeling that build up, like, let's take a step back. Let's evaluate what's going on here.
Beautiful, beautiful. What you told me there is the key. I mean, you are taking action, massive action on a continuous basis. And that is beautiful. That is exactly how you win. I talk about the principle of the 5-minute gardener. So if you're using every day, say every single day, 5 minutes, never more, never less, in your garden. Could you imagine that after a week, you notice some changes? After a month, other people notice changes. And after 3 months, your garden will produce so many veggies, you don't know what to do with them. I think, and if you now do the same 5 minutes with your child, with your partner, with your own, I don't know, with only self. And I love it that you're doing all those things. You call them routine. Other people might call them habits. You have cemented them down, and they are sustaining your well-being. That's so beautiful, because that's the secret, isn't it? Showing up for yourself and putting yourself first without being selfish. But you need to look after yourself. There's a big difference between selfish and self-care. I'm still bad at it. Because I'm still a people pleaser. I still want to be there for everyone. I still seek the external validation. It is, so I know my core beliefs are still warped, but hey, it is what it is.
Like even for me, like even when I'm at a place of wellness, like I feel them creeping up sometimes, like they're always kind of still there, but it is like, how do we manage them? How do we work with this hand that we were dealt?
Exactly right. I mean, looking at your history and your family and yourself, I mean, it's a pretty fair guess that you have got quite a few genes that were actually supporting you becoming a drug addict or alcoholic, for that matter. Are you worried about your children, that your children will have the same genetic predisposition?
Oh my gosh. I can't tell you how many conversations I've had with my husband, with myself, with anybody who will listen about this and like, what do I want to do to manage that? And I've thought about it a lot because my husband is also, he struggled with alcohol abuse for a long time and anxiety. And so we've talked about there's a pretty good chance that they're going to have some of these things that lead people towards addiction. And so we want to start having those conversations early, but like also like, let's help them manage and learn these coping skills. Let's help them learn ways to be healthy without substances and just make it a part of their life from a really young age so that
Absolutely.
when this is presented to them, like it doesn't seem like an escape that they need to take.
Absolutely. I often joke that if I was in power, I would make it mandatory for every 16-year-old to go into rehab for a month. Learn those skills, a life school, so to speak. And with that, I don't mean the financial education. With that, I don't mean that kind of life. I mean experiencing your emotions and accepting them as the wave of neurochemicals that they are, and that they all serve a purpose, and get to know them. How does sadness feel like? No, you don't need a cheesecake to immediately, or some ice cream, 5 kilogram of it, to numb that, but actually experience it and say, okay, all right, okay. So that was an anxiety attack. Okay, don't like it, but I'll take it. Oh, oops, it's finished 10 minutes later. So that's how it works. Those kind of things I never learned until I was in my mid-40s. And that is, if there's one regret in my life, then maybe that's that. That is that I did not get exposed at a much younger age towards that. But with that, I'm not now sad about my parents. In the 70s, 80s, there was nothing like that around. It, you know, no, there was maybe, when any kind of self-development was deemed to be hippies and anyhow drugs kind of a thing. So no, I can't blame my society. I can't blame my parents for it. They did the best that they could with what they knew. End of the story. But you have got the power nowadays to change that. You have got the insight now. So therefore, will your children have a higher likelihood, just genetically, to be to potentially develop addictive behavior? Hell yes. Does that mean that they will? Hell no. Because I think you gonna be such a different role model. See, for me, my children, they have seen me at my worst and they have seen me at my best. So they've seen both sides. Your children, they will not see you at your worst unless you choose to show them some pictures, unless you choose to talk openly about it.
Maybe someday.
That's right, exactly. Who knows? Who knows? It's a bit young now. but here you are, this laughter. There was probably very little laughter in your parents' family. Sorry, in your family when you were with your parents, unless it was a crazy drug-induced laughter. But that laughter, if you can have that laughter within your family now, that will give them a grounding that maybe you never had. So I strongly believe that we have got the right and the privilege to make choices every single second, and by looking after us, by showing the self-care and the self-love, that allows us then to live a life that is authentic and transparent, with integrity, with humility, with all the emotions, the gamut that there is. And by modeling that to our children, I think we make them so much stronger, despite their genes that we have handed down to them.
Yeah. Very, very, very true. You know, and I've learned so much, like being an addict for me is a blessing, because if I hadn't, I might not have received the services that I did to learn the things that I have and to learn the coping skills. But like since then, like I've dedicated my life to helping others and, you know, education and learning. And so like those are all things that I carry into this relationship too, you know, and like I love the concept of like the epigenetics thing, you know, like not all of those flips get switched on, you know, we have some control over that environment and everything that goes into that.
So true. Absolutely true. And now, beautiful. Tell us a bit more. I mean, you have turned from that victim to a survivor, and now you're clearly a thriver. What are you doing nowadays? What is turning you on? In what makes your eyes, your pupils dilate? Say yes, let's do that.
Yeah. So my healing journey has been really cool too. Like, so before I started selling drugs and I had that like period of doing really well, I got my bachelor's degree in human services with a minor in addiction studies. And I began doing some addictions counseling work. And that was great. And so, you know, I went to prison, and as I'm going through prison, I'm like, is this something I'm even going to ever be able to do again? Like, is anybody even going to want to ever hire me again? Because I really messed up big time. But I got out, you know, and after a couple of years, and I was like starting to feel like I was in a good place, and I'd done the work I needed to do. It was so important for me to get back into a position where I could help other people, because like that's what drives me. That's what drives me. And so I'd been looking for jobs. I'd had a lot of doors closed in my face, you know, the minute that they found out that I had this felony, and I was really getting discouraged. And I was like, well, I guess I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing for now. And, you know, I don't know, maybe go back to school, maybe whatever. And then I ran across this posting for a place called Face It Together for a peer recovery coach. And I looked at this posting, and like, The pay was pretty good. The organization like seemed too good to be true. Just like the positive view on addiction that they had and like the support and like really just like empowering people. And so I was like, I'm going to apply, but I don't even think this job is real. I feel like this is a scam somehow. And so I applied and I just remember doing the interview and I talked about my meth addiction and I talked about growing up and I talked about going to prison. And afterwards they said, gosh, what great experience you have. Like, you're going to be able to help a lot of people. And I'm like, if I don't get this job, I don't know how I'm ever going to move on with my life.
Yeah.
And so I got the job. And I started off at Face It Together as a coach. And so peer recovery coaching is really like, is a trained professional but somebody who's been there, somebody who can help you like navigate through, somebody who can share their story and like let you know how messed up they were, and you can see how okay they are now, and share that experience and hope with them. So I started off doing exclusively the coaching, and then I transitioned into the coaching supervisor role. So I still do like 50% coaching, and I do a lot of training of the other coaches, helping them like develop their skills. And I love doing that. But I'm also going to grad school. I'm going to grad school for clinical mental health counseling. So part of that driver for me was working with people with addiction and going through my own life, like that intersection between like trauma and addiction. It is, they're so intertwined. If you didn't have addiction before you, or if you didn't have trauma before you went into your addiction, you're going to by the time that you're done.
That's true. That's true.
And then a lot of times it is like trauma that pushes people into addiction, and not always, but so I just feel like I was running into people that struggled with so much trauma, and I felt like my hands were tied, and I wanted to be able to like help them on a deeper level. So that is why I decided to go back to school, is like, I just wanted to gain those tools so I could just really like be more effective with the people that I'm working with.
Oh God, how beautiful is that? But right now, mummy brain will start setting in, and I think you need to probably put your education temporary on hold, is my educated guess.
Yes.
But it is what it is. I mean, these and what you're describing to me is a beautiful challenge now, having your child being in the middle of your studies. It is, and that's what life is all about. There are continuously challenging moments. There's continuously new trauma. Maybe nowadays we've got the skills to look at those things that happen around us and to us, and no longer let them be traumas themselves, but just something that happens. And there's so many new insights that we develop once we go onto this journey of self-love and self-care. You will never look at the world in the same way again. And that's actually really, really beautiful. That is, oh, wow. So I'm so pleased for you. Your transformation is such a beautiful transformation. And it just shows that whatever life throws you as negative things, the past does not equal the future. Whatever has happened to you in the past, or whatever you've done in the past, well, that was in the past. And nowadays you are helping others, and you're living a life to the fullest. And the best thing is you're still growing. So have you figured out who you want to be when you grow up?
No, I mean, I feel like if you would have asked me 10 years ago, like, I thought for sure I'd be grown up when I was 36, but as it turns out,
Exactly.
I don't even know if I'm ever going to grow up, to be really honest.
See, I'm 56. I don't know how to behave. I was never 56 before. So see, I still, and in all fairness, age is really just a stupid number. It is, there are days when I feel 21 deep inside, and there are days when I feel my age, 56. But all in all, I am hungry for life. I want to live. And that is a beautiful thing for me to realize. The moment I just said that, I had to reflect back, or my mind flipped back to a time when I did not want to live, when there was so much darkness around me that I thought it's actually, maybe not living is not such a bad thing. And now to hear the conviction in my own voice is actually a very humbling thing. But that comes from the fact that I've taken action and you have taken action. We continuously take action to work on our recovery, to work on our life, and we make our life worthwhile living. And therefore, the more we do that, the less we want to escape our reality. And I think that is really the power of the addict. That is where I believe I've got a superpower, which is my addiction. And you said it the same way. It's beautiful that we've both got the same realization.
Yes.
Kattie, you're an amazing woman. I'm so pleased for you. I've got so much out of this interview. I'm incredibly grateful to you. Thank you so much for coming as a guest on my show. This was a mind-blowing moment, or morning, shall I say. If people want to know more about you and maybe get in touch with you, where can they find you?
So the best place to get in touch with me is through Face It Together. And so our website is wefaceittogether.org. That would have, our general line, and they could just drop a note saying that they would like to get in touch with me. And that is the easiest way to put myself out there. And I'm happy to be in touch with anybody, whether it is just to share my story, whether it's for advice, support, whatever, that's what I do. That's what I love to do. So.
Fantastic. And guys, look down there into the description of the YouTube video and of the podcast, because everything is down there. Make it easy for you. And whilst you're down there, press the like and subscribe button, because with that, you get informed about all the beautiful other guests that I bring onto my show. People like Kattie, who have turned their life around, who are becoming new humans, better humans. And regardless, or maybe even because of the shit that they went through. And it only proves that, there's so many of us who have been successful in turning our lives around. There is not just a fair chance, there's a very high chance that if you surround yourself with your right tribe, with people, your power team, where you're the dumbest person in the team and people help you to grow, that you will also maybe soon end up in a similar situation like Kattie and me. Hey, so whatever your darkness out there is, guys, do not give up. Do not lose hope. Hopefully, the sheer fact that you listened an hour here to Kattie and me means that you have taken action. You have already graduated into the survivor, because you have taken action and you're doing something to actually to grow, to get out of whatever misery you're stuck in. For that, I congratulate you. And now the question is, okay, what next little step can you take? It's your right. It's your choice. It's your privilege to make new choices. You can choose to go down a different route. So come along onto the right, guys. Kattie and me are on this path. We enjoy ourselves. We have a damn good time here. So come along and check Kattie out of the links down there. Otherwise, if you want to know more about me, mystepstosobriety.com. My website gives you a lot of info about all the projects that I'm involved in, the books that I've got. Guys, there is no stopping you if you start to take action. Cool. Kattie, I sent you a huge hug. And thank you so much for being such an inspiration and such a wonderful person. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. And thanks for everything that you do. This is such a beautiful project that you're working on.
Cool. And you out there, guys, look after yourself. Live with passion. Bye.
I never give up. I never give up. I never give up. Turn around.